sisters, we've all turned up the radio to hear Brother Jimmy Lakey, from coast to coast and shore to shore. Now raise your voice. Oh, let us all, Jimmy Lakey, get out of bed. Jimmy Lakey, raise your voice. Jimmy Lakey, Lakey, hey, can't live without it with Jimmy Lakey. Jimmy Lakey.
Well, top of the morning to you, everybody. A little late there starting. Why? Because I'm in the green room coughing. These allergies are kicking my patootie, and I'll try to make it throughout the show without... the sad thing at radio, years of being on radio, you had a cough button, you could cough and no one knew it. Here I have a button I can push on the screen, and it will mute my microphone, but unfortunately, it doesn't turn the mics off. And so if you see the illustrious host that you in front of you coughing in silence, it's not a silent movie. It's just that I managed to get to the microphone. Anyway, sorry, be a couple of minutes late. Just was trying to get some warm liquid down my throat and not cough throughout the entire show. Anyway, good to have you here on the program. Just got a good morning wish. It looked like from Jim. Good morning to you. I appreciate you jumping in there. From the Low No Bail Fort Collins. Low and No Bail Fort Collins. Fort Collins, Colorado, always representing years in radio in the northern Colorado area. Got a lot of folks to listen. But hey, new friends coming in from around the nation. And one of the reasons they listen to the daily update, we're going to dive into some news of the day. Going to review the festivities of yesterday as Donald Trump threw a big picnic and party for himself for the first 100 days. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the next 100 days. He flew into Michigan, the Michigan governor, who I say, don't look her in the eye, and Gretchen Whitmer met him at the airport. He tried to, remember she had the folder in front of her face a couple of weeks ago in the White House? Well, she shows up at the airport to greet him because he's going to make sure that some military aircraft are going to be made in Michigan. And she reached out her hand and he reached in and went for the hug. And Trump's not a hugger from what I'm told. So I thought that was hilarious. He says, well, you're not going to put a folder in front of your face. You're going to give me a hug, Gretchen. And he went in for the hug, and Gretchen had to do that. That was funny. If you saw the optics of that yesterday. I don't know how many of you participated, watched the rally. I did not. I've seen some highlights this morning. It looked like an exciting rally. Watched some highlights last night as well. But ladies and gentlemen, the first 100 days are over, and the work is still got to get going. And it looks like there's no sign of slowing down. That is something that is definitely part of the Trump agenda. There's no slowdown. According to justthenews.com, at the rally last night, he laid out an ambitious agenda for trade, for cuts, and he's back to talking about Mars. President Donald Trump, according to Amanda Head, used the first rally of his second term to assure voters in the battleground states of Michigan that the dizzying pace of his first 100 days will persist in the next phase of his presidency as he presses to get Americans on Mars, to cut taxes, to cut spending in Washington, turn tariffs into trade deals and lucrative deals for everyday American workers. Here's a quote from Trump. He said, we've just gotten started. You haven't seen anything yet. It's all just kicking off. And that's what he told the adoring packed crowd at the Macomb Community College in Warren, Michigan, nearly 6 months after sweeping Michigan and other battleground states en route to winning the 2024 election. He said, instead of putting China first, I'm going to put Michigan first, and I'm putting America first, and we're just getting started. Anybody watch the rally last night? Did anybody, do you feel as optimistic now as you did 100 days ago? Do you feel that same optimism, that same excitement? Have you been propagandized by the media, making the media's not portrayed him very well? 92% of the stories the mainstream media has put out have been negative about Donald Trump. And so if you're only relying on the news, the media, to get your information, you've got to go do some research on your own. But if you only rely on the news reports out there, you're going to get some pretty negative feed and about Donald J. Trump. So it's a question. It's not necessarily the question of the day. Are you as optimistic now as you were 100 days ago? Remember the joy, the elation you felt after the election? And then the inauguration day, producer Chad and I did that show live from the cigar shops in Lafayette, Colorado, and it was a freezing cold day, like -5 in the morning. It was really cold. But do you feel as optimistic and happy as you did then? Or have any of you had dampers put on your joy? Have any of you had a cover put over your light and your excitement? I'm just asking the question, do you feel the same level of excitement after the first 100 days as you did 100 days ago? Is the excitement level still there? Are you still bustling with joy? Are you still feeling that sensation, that elation that says, I need to pinch myself and see if it's really true? Do you think that it's going to be, do you think that Marvina on the screen pops up in the chat room. It says Trump unleashed. Well, he has been unleashed for the last 100 days. Some of that maybe has caused some of you any trepidation, or any of you still saying this is exactly what I voted for. There's a lot of folks out there that would try to convince you, well, he's got good policies. It's the way he does it. I like what he does, but I don't like his attitude. He's much more tempered this term, I think, than last term, but he's also much more aggressive and knows how to get things done. So this is the question. Are you as optimistic about the next 100 days as you were on Inauguration Day? Do you still feel that same joy, that elation? Or do you say, gosh, maybe I should do something different? Let me hear from you. All the platforms out there, whether you're watching us on the Facebook or the YouTube or the X or the Twitter or the Rumbles, or we're on YouTube this morning as well. If you make a comment on almost all those platforms, it shows up here in the studio. And as you can see, they pop up screen for 15, 20 seconds and you can read them. RJ says, we are still as optimistic now as we were 100 days ago. President Trump is going to do great things and make America great again. So there's RJ. Say, hey, we're still as optimistic. Has anybody lost that loving feeling? Remember the old song, You've Lost That Loving Feeling? Have any of you lost that loving feeling when it comes to Donald J. Trump after the first 100 days? Do any of you have advice you would like to give him? Love to hear what your advice would be for the comparing the past 100 days, the joy you felt 100 days ago versus what you feel right now marching forward. All right, so we can talk about that this morning. Let's see, what do we got to have the 100-day rally. Trump said it was a revolution of common sense. And if you think about it, I know they're trying to make you think how uncommon Donald Trump is, but if you think about it, Donald Trump has put some common sense thought back in there. He says if you're a boy and you're born as a boy and you have the berry and the twigs, the twig and the berries, then you're a boy and you should not be able to compete in girls' sports, period. That's common sense to most Americans. It's an 80-20 issue, if not 90-10 issue, but it's not common sense to Democrats. You should not have your border as an open sieve and basically say, come one, come all. And if you show up here, hey, well, you just live here among us and do what you want to do, and we won't background check you, but we'll make sure if you want to, we'll have a hearing for you and see if we can get you here permanently. But just walk around. That hearing's in 3 years, okay? We'll get you in 3 years. That's no common sense. There's no nation that's sane that would do that. But the Democrats in this nation are not sane. They have insanity and they cloak it up as compassion, and actually it's idiocy and it's a suicidal tendency towards a nation. So revolution of common sense. Think of all the things that Trump has. That's probably a pretty good summary of what he has done. Now, some of you are anticipating and or anxiety laced regarding the common sense of the tariffs. I still think the tariffs are a good move. I think first of all, they're a negotiating tool. I would like to see us not being taken advantage of. I think could the rollout have been different? Maybe, possibly, but I think in the long run, you can't judge the economy based on 100 days. It took us a long time to get there, and it's not going to bounce back immediately. But I think there are signs on the horizon. So I think if that's the common sense phrase, that this has been a revolution of common sense in the last 100 days. I think that's pretty much a fair statement. That maybe the biggest accomplishment is that we're gonna enforce laws. Maybe the biggest accomplishment is common sense says, hey, there's a law in the book about the borders, and we should enforce that law. Wow. Joe Biden, he's a lying sack of Joe. Joe Biden said, we can't secure the border until they pass a new bill. Donald Trump comes in and says, and Tom Homan comes in and says, wait, we have laws on the books that say this border is unlawful. So let's just obey the laws on the books. And that's common sense. Revolution of common sense, I think, is probably a very, very, very happy and a good way to put this whole thing. All right. I found this story to be funny, and I'm sure the media is going to just go. They always looking for something to go bat crap crazy, that Donald Trump wants to be a dictator. Donald Trump wants to be a dictator. Well, South Carolina Republican Lindsey Graham has now thrown his support behind Donald Trump becoming the next pope. You say, what Donald Trump becoming a pope? He's not even Catholic. Well, listen, he was speaking with reporters at the White House yesterday, and he was heading out to Michigan for this big rally. And the media screamed out some dumbass question that, what do you think about the Pope? Well, I think he's dead. That's what I think. And they asked, they said, who do you think should be the next Pope? And Donald Trump's a pretty smart guy, but I'm guessing Donald Trump might not have his Pope playing cards in front of him. So I'm not sure if he's playing in the Pope draft or anything. But he said, I'd like to be Pope. So they asked him, who do you think should be the next Pope? And Donald Trump laughingly, jokingly, but he did it very deadpan because he's good at delivery of his comedy. He says, I'd like to be Pope. That's my number one choice. And he deadpanned the media so that the media would have something to go freak out about. And then after a pause, he said, no, I don't. I don't have a preference. I don't know. So he's joking. Making humor is what he was doing. A funny thing, I'd like to be the Pope. Well, Lindsey Graham took to the Twitter and said, I was excited to hear that President Trump is open to the new idea of becoming the next Pope. This would truly be the dark horse candidate. But I would ask the papal conclave and the Catholic faithful to keep an open mind about this possibility. So having a little bit of fun about the Pope. The first Pope U.S. president combination has many episodes watching for the white smoke. People sort of replying and having a great time. So Donald Trump had fun with that. So I'm thinking, okay, they're making jokes about the Pope and making jokes about Pope Trump. And then I see this, that all the youngsters out there are really getting in the Pope mode. They're really watching it. You've heard of a fantasy football league, right? And I jokingly a moment ago said something about the Pope draft. Is there a fantasy Pope draft? Well, listen to this. This is a fantasy Pope league. It's drawing players on TikTok. Producer Chad, another reason we should be on the TikTok. We could put our name in the nomination in the Pope draft to see if we could get, maybe you or I could be qualified to be for the papal conclave to at least consider us. No, it's a serious story, though. People who use the online platform TikTok may be tempted to take part in a fantasy football. But this new fantasy football form is around who will be the next Pope. The death of Pope Francis, if you're on TikTok and all that surrounds it, is all this coverage. And the conclave gets together on May the 7th. And the Washington Times is reporting that the Pope League on TikTok is the creation of Max. It's Max Hooray, and whatever that means, but it's called the Pope League. And he said there are 10 times the number of people in the sweepstakes as there are cardinals in the Catholic Church, making it bigger and therefore more legitimate than the real conclave. The league reportedly runs much like fantasy football. Users get points based on how the Cardinals they are rooting for does in the voting. The report said the TikTok game has essentially gone viral with more than 2,000 participants in the Pope League signing up on the first day after being viewed of more than 100,000 times. So if you want to play Pope League, you can. It's on the TikTok, and you can go play it. Isn't there a TikTok deadline supposed to happen? Wasn't the deadline right before the election, and supposedly they got a deadline to sale or shut down, and it was a 75-day deadline, right? If I recall, 75-day deadline. And that's the law. It's like written in law. The Congress passed a law that had to be done, so I don't even know how they extended and gave 75-day grace period. I'm reading this about TikTok, and I'm like, well, if Trump's at 100 days in office, and then that means we're well past the 75-day deadline. We're going to get the research team, Delilah. TikTok, it's your specialty. Don't be dancing on it. Go find out why if the 75-day deadline had passed. I don't know. Don't no dance videos. Though. Don't post those again. It's disgraceful to know that what you're doing. Yeah, don't keep your dollar bills away. They're covered in glitter. Thank you. I don't know. Just a random question: is the Pope League's playing on TikTok? And I thought TikTok only got 75 more days, but evidently they have the rule of law doesn't matter anymore at all. All right, what else do we have here? Good morning, everybody. Glad to have you here. Coming up in the next half hour of the show, Mr. John O'Connor is going to be with us. John O'Connor is, of course, legendary in the legal world because he was made his name as Deep Throat's attorney back in the Watergate days. And he comes with us on with occasionally do some legal analysis. And I wanted to run this story by him about the Colorado nightclub that was operating underground illegally in Colorado Springs, and they busted it over the weekend, and hundreds of people were there dancing. Many were illegals, many had warrants, and we're just going to talk about the legal ramifications that if there's a few hundred on any given night in Colorado Springs having a dance party at an illegal nightclub, it makes you wonder how many others of these illegals are lurking in the shadows. So I'm just curious about that. We'll talk about the John O'Connor here in just a bit. And also, we got going postal. I got a story about going postal, and the Postal Service is helping with deportations. I've got that story. I've also got a story about moving. A lot of folks talk about one of the things they hate most in life is being asked to move. When was the last time? I think the older you get, the less you get asked to help somebody move. The last time I got asked to help someone move was my son moving him into a college dorm, and I was not going to miss that for the world. But my friends, I don't think I've been. I did a couple of years ago help a friend. I brought my son and his friends and bought him lunch and helped him move out of an apartment he was in. But I didn't do the heavy lifting because I'm beyond the years of heavy lifting. Anyway, 38% of Americans say they hate it when someone asks to help them move. How do you feel when someone asks to help you move? I have a friend who says, they say, hey, can I borrow your truck? Or would you help me move? He says, no, but you can borrow my truck. I'm not going to help you move. I'm busy, but you can borrow my truck. That's actually probably a pretty good way to get out of it. Anyway, I'm kind of thinking that 38% of Americans hate it when someone asks them to help move. I'm kind of surprised that number is not higher. We'll do this study here in just a moment. Just a minute, come back to the study and talk about that. All right, the question of the day operating right now is, what do you think? Are you as optimistic now as you were 100 days ago with Donald J. Trump? Let me read those comments coming in. I also would like to share with you that a couple of days ago, we announced that we no longer are operating on the Patreon page. We had content that was behind the paywall, and we have unleashed it from behind the paywall on Lakey Unleashed. And instead, all the content is going out on our podcast channel. So this is, if you're watching this live on a glorious day the Lord has made, you're watching this live. It is April the 30th day of April, year of our Lord 2025. You're watching it live. That's called a streamcast. But if it goes up later and after the fact, we call that a podcast. We just make the names up because this is the Wild West we live in. So the podcast is up. So every day after this show happens, this live streamcast, as some of you watch on video, a lot of you are now listening to it later in the day, and you're listening to the audio portion only on the podcast platforms, whether it's Spotify or iHeart or Apple Podcasts, etc. You're out listening on the podcast. Well, we have started to put up some other materials out there. Some of these had been trapped behind the paywall. Some of these had been trapped, and you had to have a $9.95 subscription. And we appreciate all of you who subscribed. We really do appreciate it. We decided we wanted to go another route, and we have launched these out for free. And so I want to play. A lot of these are original videos, and you can find those still on our YouTube channel. But this is so if you're listening, all these are available on audio, and what we're going to show you is video, obviously. But if you're on the podcast or the stream channels, you're going to find the audio only portion of this. So this is an interview I did just a couple of weeks ago, and it was with Mr. Tannenbaum, Robert Tannenbaum. He, in I think it was 1976, got called up by the government, the FBI and Congress, and he was going to be one of the chief investigators on the reinvestigation of the presidential assassination of John F. Kennedy. And so this 1976, 77, he goes to work. It took 2 or 3 years of investigating. He was one of the lead investigators. And after that investigation, we have the JFK files just now coming out. You find out the CIA was very, very naughty back in those days. We're just now finding that out. Tannenbaum, in this interview, says that they knew that the CIA had involvement. They knew that the CIA was problematic. So this interview has been launched behind a paywall, but it's no longer behind a paywall. If you'll go to any of the podcast platforms, again, I'll name them: Spotify, Podbean, iHeart, any of those podcast platforms, look up Jimmy Lakey Unleashed, and you can scroll down, not just hear the Daily Show, but you can hear an interview. So this is my interview, a segment of it. It's about a 45-minute interview, if I recall, almost an hour probably, but this is just a section of it in which Mr. Tannenbaum talks about the CIA involvement that he knew about, the investigators knew about in 1976, but some reason tried to keep it as quiet as possible up until the time that Donald Trump released those JFK files a couple of weeks ago. Watch this and listen to it, and this is all available in its entirety on all the stream podcast platforms. Make sure you go look for Lakey Unleashed, Jimmy Lakey Unleashed. Roll it.
Problem they ran into. In 1963, in December of 63, the Secret Service and the FBI found that Kennedy and Connally were hit with two separate bullets. They didn't say separate guns. They said separate bullets. And both of them were shot. Both Kennedy and Connally were hit between 1.9 seconds of each other. Now, you know what's coming up. Zapruder frame is 18.3 frames per second. If Kennedy and Connally were hit at a separation of 1.9 seconds, guess what cannot be used as the murder weapon? The Mannlicher Carcano. Why? Because the Mannlicher Carcano takes 2.3 seconds to go through the manual bolt action necessary to fire separate successive shots. So now they're out. They just lost their murder weapon. That didn't stop them. So what did they do? They ordered Arlen Specter, who was a staff attorney at the time, subsequently becomes DA of Philadelphia. And he's told to find a magic bullet theory. That's the derivation of the magic bullet theory. Now, what is that? I mentioned initially, all of these facts come into play. And the shots that Kennedy was hit with initially, that is to say, he was hit with that one shot on the first volley. And it was a downward declination, a downward track, meaning it was about 5-6 inches below the neckline. And keep in mind, there's an opening in that neck, right? And it was 5 to 6 inches. We know that from autopsy. And that means it hit him in the back, below the neckline, substantially below the neckline, 6 inches, and it traveled downward in his body. Well, guess what? CIA didn't care about that. They said the bullet came out his throat. If it came out his throat, it's the only bullet that could dance this way in human history, because the bullet was going downward in JFK's back, meaning simply the bullet of entry was higher, of course, than the track that was moving downward in his body, about 5 to 6 inches below the neck. But they said the bullet then moved up, like my hand is moving, 11 degrees upward, meaning it stopped in his body, moved up and exited his throat, struck Connally in the rib, and struck Connally in the wrist. And then they claimed that, and this was the kicker to the whole story, they claimed that they had science on their side, I want you to know. And what was it? Neutron activation analysis, NAA, neutron activation analysis. And what was that? That was to prove that the fragments in the limo, there were two big fragments in the limo, they came from one bullet. The next bullet were from the fragments, they were traced to the fragments in Connally's wrist, they were traced up into what we called CE, Commission Exhibit 399, the magic bullet. And that is the magic bullet theory, which comes out to the following. The magic bullet theory is so anti-scientific, as I mentioned, the bullet going up, et cetera. But the bottom line to the whole story is that the CIA people were going around saying now there was only one bullet that was found in the car, basically, because they matched, according to them, neutron activation analysis permitted them to match the fragments in the limo to one bullet. And the other one bullet was Commission Exhibit 399, the magic bullet's pristine condition. And that is the theory that they moved on, because they said neutron activation analysis is a science.
Yeah.
But here's the kicker. They said, if you don't believe what we're telling you now, all you people out there who doubt us, well, I got news for you. They said, you believe the earth is flat. Well, guess what about the earth being flat? When metallurgical PhDs from around the country learned about this, and they were never spoken to, when they learned all about this, they wrote scathing criticism of its effectiveness, that NAA, neutron activation analysis, was something that you could not do. You could not match a fragment to a bullet. You could not match a fragment to a bullet. Well, that destroys the entire concept of the science, the alleged science. So what did they do? The FBI was very nervous because they had agents who were testifying about this phenomenon. And they were in court giving testimony under oath in criminal cases. So they asked to have the 10 best authorities in the country examine this whole NAA situation on its efficacy, its accuracy. And they all came down and said it's inaccurate. You cannot match a fragment to a fragment or a fragment to a bullet. And guess what they did? The only lab that existed in the country at the time was an FBI lab. They shut the lab down on September 1st, 05, and they forbid all of FBI agents never to testify about its efficacy, accuracy again. They declared it to be scientifically invalid. And that was the science that they relied on. That's the CIA for you.
Yeah. Let's Robert Tannenbaum, if you're just listening to the audio, he's my guest. He has a great new book out. You want to pick it up. He's written a lot of books, but the name of the book is called That Day in Dallas, Lee Harvey Oswald Did Not Kill JFK. Robert, there's been a lot of talk recently with the Trump administration releasing what they call the JFK files, the secret documents that have been hidden from the American people for over 60 years. Is there anything in the JFK files, I think 80,000 pages or so, that is finally changing the narrative? I mean, I agree with everything you said. That exit wound always baffled me, and I think there's more to the story. In my estimation, what they've been trying to cover up is that CIA, that organization, and their involvement in this. Anything new in the JFK files when you've had a chance to review them?
Well, I will say this. On the reviewing issue, there are people, of course, who I deal with in this, and there's some wonderful people who do research. Believe me, there are a lot of people who are total kooks, or they go over things that have been looked at over the years. Now, keep in mind, the CIA has had 62 years to lie to the American public about what happened. Would it offend common sense if I suggested to you and your audience that maybe they washed clean every document that is in these 80,000? That is what, in fact, is going on. But more importantly, there are witnesses, that is to say, some alleged experts, who claim that Oswald was by the car outside of Dealey Plaza, rather outside of the book depository. That issue has been explored and explored. They claim it now as if it's something new. There has always been a suspicion, and this is how these well-intentioned individuals who call themselves researchers get tied down in knots. They said that Oswald was there. It was a person who indeed looked like Oswald, but it was chased down every rabbit hole to determine who it was, and it couldn't be determined to anyone's satisfaction who's serious about presenting the evidence. And that's what I'm talking about here. And I'll tell you something else that's interesting. I believe you'll find it interesting, as I did. When I first went to Washington, Richard Sprague was the chief counsel, and he called me in October of '76. I had never met him, never spoken to him. He had a great reputation as the main guy. If you had a homicide case in Pennsylvania, he was the chief assistant DA in Philly, and he was the man. And he was the man. He was just a great lawyer and a completely honest person. He asked me to go to Washington to become the deputy chief counsel of the House Select Committee on Assassinations and charge of the Kennedy assassination. And my first week down there, Senator Richard Schweiker, called me to his office. And Senator Schweiker was a good man. He was part of the Senate Church Committee investigation into the Executive Intelligence Agency's responses to the assassinations of President Kennedy and Martin Luther King. And I was in charge of the investigation, the subcommittee investigating the President Kennedy assassination. Now, keep that in mind. It's a pretty weighty thing, because in each executive department, they have their own intelligence agency. So guess what? When it was determined that, in Schweiker's mind, when he finished his investigation and he invited me to his office, he gave me his file. And he said, I want to tell you something. It bothers me to tell you this, but it's very important for you to know how I feel, because I've just investigated what now you're going to investigate. And that is, the CIA has done everything they could to interfere with the investigation. They've given wrong documents, wrong dates, you name it, they have done it. And he said, take my file, study it, do as you wish with it, but I must tell you that, in my opinion, and the opinion of our committee, the CIA participated in the assassination of President Kennedy.
And that, my friends, is the rest of the story, as you call it. The rest of that story, the rest of that interview can now be heard, and you hear it. This was back in 1976. The rest of that story can be heard on all the podcast platforms. So again, just go look for this show. If you're watching it live, I know, but if you want to hear it throughout the day, it does go with the audio version only. And that's on Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, iTunes, etc. So not iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, etc. So go look for us, and we would love for you to be out there that and listen to and spread the word. Download, like it on all the platforms, and we're doing very well. We've been up on the podcast platform about a week now, and it's doing quite well. We want you to keep spreading the love. And again, it's not just this show that shows up on the podcast platform. It is also all the interviews that previously were on Patreon paywalls. They've been unleashed, and in the future, there will be all free interviews up there, and that's just another asset we're putting out there. So the live shows and the recorded interviews that are long-form interviews are all there. Again, just look for Jimmy Lakey Unleashed on all your podcast platforms. If you're watching us live, we appreciate you. If you're not watching us live, thanks for listening to us in retrospect, if you will. And if you ever want to watch the beauty that is this show in live video and you're only listening to the audio, we start off 8 o'clock every morning on all the platforms out there that we can stream on, and access to a heck of a lot of people. So we appreciate you doing it. Anyway, good to have you here on the show. It is the glorious day the Lord has made, Hump Day Wednesday. Some of you tune in and usually want to hear Steve Laffey at this time. Steve is on his way back to the United States. He has been touring Europe the last couple of days, last couple of weeks. He also has a son that's attending, getting his master's degree in Europe. So he was out visiting his son, him and his wife. So they're en route, I think, even as we speak, back to the Colorado area. So Laffey should be back on track for next week. We'll get him back on. We have a question of the day out here. The question of the day is, are you as optimistic for the next 100 days as you were 100 days ago? 100 days ago coming right... Excuse me, that's the cold. That's one of the tricks that we did. That's why we played a 10-minute interview previously, because I've got this nasty allergy thing and I'm coughing. So I apologize for not hitting my mic in time. Are you as optimistic now as you were 100 days ago? 100 days ago, coming off an inauguration, you had optimism. Everything was great. It was glorious, right? Everything's going to happen. We're going to make America great again. What's your feeling now? If that was at 10, are you at 9? Are you 8? Are you just as optimistic? Love to hear from you. Scott, I see in the chat room, says it's been great. However, the last 100 days, I'm still out, still not committed about the tariffs. I love free trade. So Scott says that's been great, but hold on, we're not quite sure about the tariffs. John says this in the chat room. Again, any platform that you're on, make a comment. John says, no doubt in my mind the CIA was involved in the Kennedy assassination. Kennedy wanted to disband the organization after their Bay of Pigs disaster. We talked about that, I think, in that interview with Tannenbaum. But it's so fascinating how they kept that secret for years, and yet they knew it. Back in 1976, when Robert Tannenbaum went to investigate the House Select Committee on Assassination, he was one of the investigators. They knew the CIA had involvement then, and they still kept it secret and redacted in files for a long, long time. So, question of the day: are you as excited now about the next 100 days? And what has happened if your energy and excitement is not as exciting as high level as it was 100 days ago? What has happened, and what has been the thing that tamped down your joy? What's been the thing that has caused you to be a little bit less optimistic or a little bit less exciting? Let me hear from you. Make those comments in the chat room if you can. We would love to hear from you indeed. Love to hear from you indeed. All right, let's see. What else we want to get to? Oh, let me give you an announcement. May 17th, coming up just, 18, 19 days away, is going to be our casino gala. For Rivers Promise. You got to have a ticket. It is it's not a free event. It's a Patreon type event. It's a paid event, and you need to get your ticket. Prices are going to go up real soon, and when they go up, they ain't coming down, baby. They're not. I was texting some friends yesterday that had not registered. I said, you need to get registered, man. Price is going to go up. And one guy was Jewish. He said, I'm a Jew. You can't raise the price on me. It was funny interaction. I said, I'm going to raise the price on you twice because you're being mouthy. Just register. So anyway, get registered for the casino gala. You can do so at riverspromise.org, riverspromise.com. And it's another great way to register yourself, or you can what you can do is register a whole table, invite your office or invite some coworkers, and go buy the table. It's a generous donation to charity. It's going to be a night of entertainment, live music, Frank Sinatra entertainment. A couple of hours of that. It's going to be fantastic. You'll love it. Sorry. I would have another video to play, or we would. The food's included. There's a cash bar available. There's going to be silent auction items, the casino games. There's a poker tables. It's going to be a lot of fun. You can register at riverspromise.org. We want to see you on May the 17th. If we don't see you, we're going to have our feelings hurt. So please show up May 17th. It's the Omni Resort, Omni Hotel Interlaken Resort in Broomfield, Colorado. Great facility there, and we'd love for you to be there with us. We hope you're there with us, and don't disappoint us. It's May the 17th at 7 p.m. Let's see. Mike commenting on the question of the day in the chat room says, yes, I think this is he's still excited, but doesn't trust Congress to do what we want. See, that's the caveat. Congress has to get a lot of stuff done here, and they're going to have to get it done. And there's a lot of, and that's why the first 100 days and even the next 100 days are so important. I saw this that Speaker Mike Johnson said, we hope to have a deal done for the taxes and the tax cuts and the budget. We hope to have everything in place for by, I think he said July 1st. And I believe as of the corner of my eye, I just saw the television, I could hear the audio. It was Congressman Chip Roy of Texas said, to hell with that. He says, I get sick and tired, and this is a Republican attacking a Republican. He has a point, because I heard they're going to try to set this artificial deadline of the 4th of July, which is nice, tied to Independence Day and things like that, right? Well, Chip Roy says, I'm sick of this stuff. He says, what do? We end up getting crappy bills because we set arbitrary deadlines around holidays, and we got to get it done by this holiday because the members of Congress are going to have to go home. And so Chip Roy was sounding a little bit of a clarion call of warning and saying, be very careful when you hear Republicans also now starting to push arbitrary deadlines that mean nothing, kind of pulling a deadline out of thin air. It's one thing to say we'd like to have it done by July 4th, but Chip, being a member of Congress, says he knows that's language for, hey guys, if it's not done by the July 1st or for July 4th, we're just going to have to, that's our deadline. That's where they end up passing these omnibus bills and do things that are very, very nasty. And I thought that was very good of Chip to sound the warning on that. But you're right, Mike. You got to have Congress do what we want. And the way you have Congress do what you want is to give them hell. And that's what you got to do. They've got to hear from you. They've got to hear from you, members of Congress, Democrat, Republican, etc. They got to hear from you. Here's another 100-day question. I was watching some of the coverage of the 100-day celebration that Trump had yesterday and his rally, and I was watching it. And I'm wondering this. Somebody went through a montage of all the craziness the Democrats have done in the last 100 days. They went through this phase, they felt that they could just curse all the time, right? Remember they throwing F-bombs and F Trump. Remember that was a cursing phase, and everybody had the same cursing script. And then they went through this thing of they're trying to be relevant. So as these ladies jumping, trying to pretend, choose your action hero fighter to fight Donald Trump. And that was weird. And then they've had a couple of episodes where they go to protest and they start singing. Even this weekend, they had to sit in on the Capitol steps with Hakeem Jeffries and Cory Booker. That was very strange. There's all these weird things. We had the couple of weeks of Jasmine. Real Jasmine out there. Jasmine not wanting to be outdone by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She's out there cursing and threatening and saying all sorts of nasty stuff. You had the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Bernie Sanders tours. That went on for a couple of weekends, and then that kind of petered out, if you will. The other part of the next 100 days is what's going to happen for the Democrats. Are they going to finally get a leg to stand on and start making a coherent argument? Are they just going to say, this is chaotic, this is anti-constitutional, he's Hitler? They've gotten back on the Hitler thing. The big fat governor from Illinois, Pritzker, who never saw a hamburger he wouldn't eat. I mean, he's a big boy. I think I'm out of shape sometimes. I see him and I go, whoo, good Lord Almighty. There's hope for him, though. There's hope. Mr. Ambassador Huckabee used to be a very large man. He went on a diet, and he looks very good today. So there's hope for you, Pritzker. There's hope for you. But more than your weight, I'm worried about your soul, Mr. Pritzker. Mr. Illinois Pritzker, I'm worried about your soul. Hope you find Jesus one day. That's not for me to judge, though, but I'm just throwing that out there as some advice. I don't think it'd be easy. He was out there making a speech in New Hampshire, ironically, showing that he probably wants to run for president. And what's he trying to do? He's trying to say Donald Trump is Hitler. They're back to the Hitler thing. I just wonder, the next 100 days, they obviously didn't learn in the entire election cycle, But if Donald Trump can pull off some victories, and Congress helps pull off some victories, big, huge victories at the southern border, the polls show that. People are still a little bit worried about the economy. But when this economy starts to boom again, I'm telling you, the Democrats, if all they're screaming is Nazi, 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 Russia, 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 then Democrats just keep going. Rich says, see the comment there on the screen. Democrats are just throwing it all against the wall and seeing what will stick. So evidently the cursing in front of the microphone didn't stick that well. Evidently the screaming or the singing on the Capitol steps, evidently that didn't work in. There's nothing that's really connected with that I see in any kind of polling, because even though Donald Trump maybe some people are still worried about the economy, they expected a bigger turnaround of the economy in 100 days or whatever their trepidation is. The approval polls of Democrats in Congress makes Donald Trump look like a national hero. I mean, Donald Trump, even if he's lagging in some areas or has declined in some areas of just simple polling, flash polling, congressional Democrats, no matter how much they curse, no matter how much they scream, no matter how much they say oligarchs and all that, nothing's working. It's just not working in the masses across America. It's probably working. Some of those Democrat radicals to be living in their mom's basement, probably really excited about it. But it's not working in the polls out there. All right, the first 100 days versus the last 100 days. What say you? Are you better off now? Are you, as I should say, are you more excited now? Are you less excited now than you were the first 100 days? 100 days ago, we were living on cloud 9. Are you still on cloud 9? Why was it not cloud 10? I don't know. There's cloud 9. There's got to be. I'm going to look that up. Were you still on cloud 9? Have any of you downgraded yourself to cloud 7? Cloud 5, Cloud 2, I'd love to hear from you. Somebody says the Democrat Party is entirely rudderless at the moment, and it really shows. That's so true. I don't even know who the leader is. If you ask who the Democrat leader is, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, but she's partnered with Bernie Sanders, and the traditional Democrat Party would never. That's how Bernie Sanders sold his soul. Bernie Sanders would have been the nominee against Hillary Clinton, but they had to work a deal and help Bernie out with some cash, and the base will elect Bernie Sanders, but the traditional Democrats out there know that that's not going to necessarily play in Peoria when it comes to mainstream American flyover country. So it's going to be interesting. They are rudderless, and again, the question of the day is there anything in the last 100 days that surprised you? Every day the media tried to make it sound like it was a massive news story that this was happening, and it wasn't to me. It was never a massive news story that it isn't happening. It's what I voted for. And even when people were very worried about, he's cutting too much, too deep, too quick. And I how many times did I say, maybe we just kind of wait and see? Every action has equal and opposite reaction. And, maybe there's going to be, and I think there has been. I think there's a lot of folks have calmed down, then realized that the cuts that have been made by DOGE, some of them have been restored, some of them have been reanalyzed, some of them have been reallocated. And some of it was just damn waste, fraud, and abuse, period. And Congress got to fix that. So, but the media tries to get you worked up into a panic on a day-to-day basis, hour-by-hour basis. They try to get you all up into a tizzy and a frenzy and slathered up in sweat and spit and thinking, oh, my God, it's chaos, chaos, chaos. And when you pause at it, it's kind of what I voted for. It's kind of what I voted for, and I believe it's all going to work out in the long run. 100 days is a very short chess game when it comes to a 4-year term, getting stuff done even before the midterm. So anyway, there's your question of the day. The question of the day is, do you feel as if that same level of excitement now that you felt 100 days ago, or have you gone from cloud 9 to cloud 7? And what is the anticipation that you think the next 100 days should hold? We can dive into all of that. Indeed, we shall. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to take a quick break. We're going to come back with John O'Connor, who's in the green room waiting to come on. It's time to talk about a lot of good folks out there, a lot of our great sponsors. We talk about Sherry Cree on a regular basis. You heard us talk about Lehman Lewis Financial Group. You heard us talk about Corey Clinton, 1 Hour Heating and Air. If you would ever like us to brag about your business, send us an email, info@jimmylakey.com. info@jimmylakey.com, info@jimmylakey.com, info@jimmylakey.com. We'd love to be able to brag about your business very, very, very soon. All right, let's take this quick break, pay the bills. Advertisers, well, no, we're paying the bills. What we're doing is promoting those that deserve promoting. We're celebrating businesses that help us do what we do and are so supportive of Lakey throughout the years, and we appreciate you. Stand by, Lakey. Good morning. We'll be right back with John.
1 Hour Heating and Air Conditioning is on call 24/7, even on weekends and holidays. We pride ourselves in our on-time guarantees. In addition to installation and repairs, we offer maintenance services. So no matter when you need us, you can always count on 1 Hour Heating and Air Conditioning to keep your system running. Check out our family of brands for all of your service needs, including electrical and plumbing.
1 Hour Heating and Air Conditioning.
How you holding up? Nothing wrong with getting help.
If I promise to look into it, will you drop it and help me build this fence?
Now you need my help.
If you or a veteran you know needs support, don't wait. Reach out. Find resources at va.gov/reach.
All right, I'm back. I hope you missed me a lot. Info at jimmylakey.com. Would love to brag about your business. Would love to tell people how good you are. It doesn't matter if you're in Colorado. Corey Clinton has a great coverage area all across the I-25 corridor of Colorado, but maybe your business in New York, maybe your business. Again, this isn't just a live stream. It's podcasts throughout the day. We got a lot of different platforms and thousands of earballs. Listen to this thing on a regular basis, on a daily and weekly basis, so we can tell you, we can geo-track where you're at and work it out for you. So if you're listening to us in Missouri, you want us to brag about your business there, and just kind of be a supporter of the program, we can do that. Indeed, we shall. We'd love to. Info at jimmylakey.com. All right. Longtime friend of the radio program, and he's been on the now live streamcast, and now it's also a podcast. So some of you will be listening to this in the afternoon across the podcast platforms. It's Mr. John O'Connor. It's always a pleasure to have him on the program. John, good morning to you, sir.
Good to be with you, Jimmy.
You are the author of Postgate, How the Washington Post Betrayed Deep Throat, Covered Up Watergate, and Began Today's Partisan Advocacy Journalism. Also the host of The Mysteries of Watergate, the podcast. People should go listen to that for some of the behind-the-scenes little told things about the Watergate era. You were actually Deep Throat's attorney. Always good to have John O'Connor. John, I want to dive into a couple things. I want to talk about this illegal nightclub that was just down the road from us here in Colorado. It's hundreds of illegals, and the arrests happened. It was a real mess over the weekend. But first, I want to also talk about this judge in Wisconsin that has been prosecuted and filed charges by the Department of Justice for basically aiding and abetting a legal arrest of an illegal alien that ICE was there to detain. And now the Wisconsin Supreme Court has now suspended this judge from the bench as well. Give me your thoughts. Some people are squawking, saying, oh, my God, Donald Trump has become a tyrant. He's going after the judges. Was the judge right or wrong to do this?
Absolutely wrong. There's no doubt about it, Jimmy. Back when I was a prosecutor for the federal government, we took very seriously people who harbored fugitives and oftentimes sent them away for 10 and 15 years. And so that's not a good thing. We have to have a process of law. It's one thing for somebody to be a criminal, but then for someone else to help them hide from the law, you're now guilty. And it is stunning to me. The fact that she's a judge heightens her duties. She should know better. It's one thing if maybe somebody's buddy, it's understandable. If somebody says, hey, I want to stay away from the feds. Can you put me in your basement for the night? That's harboring a fugitive too. But, you know, it's a little more understandable. But a judge who is cognizant, specifically cognizant of the feds waiting to pick up this fellow in the courtroom if he goes out the front door, what have you, is now trying affirmatively and specifically to evade arrest by the federal government for a crime for which he's wanted. To me, it is stunningly bad judgment, and it's stunningly criminal conduct. And what's good about it is for the Trump administration is it gives them a way to signal this whole idea of not tolerating illegal immigration. They're not going to get such clear-cut cases in the future, and this is a good one to send a shot across the bow of all the sanctuary states and cities out there.
How does it work that in the judicial, obviously the charges in the justice system, felony charges against her, obviously she could be maybe disbarred by that'd be a statewide thing. Is there anything in the Department of Justice that gives her accountability all the way to the Supreme Court? Is there anything within the judicial branch of government that would sanction her? Or is it all going to be just in the criminal courts?
No, you bring up a good point. Well, she's got two different things she's got to answer to. Now, the Supreme Court of Wisconsin may have already suspended her. That they have their own proceedings within the judiciary where they can sanction a member of the judiciary, perhaps exclude them and disqualify them. But then you also have the Bar Association. Remember when Bill Clinton sat there in a deposition and allowed his lawyer to lie about not having sex with Monica Lewinsky, even though Clinton himself did not lie. But he did it in front of a judge. The lawyer did it in front of a judge. And Bill Clinton got disbarred for that. So that's a big deal. Now, and this is a clear message. Now you've got a lot of immigration judges across the country and just regular state court judges who are handling immigrants who are caught for regular crimes. And this thing comes up all the time, Jimmy, where somebody is caught for a crime. It turns out that the person's an illegal immigrant. And now the question is, do we hand them over to the feds? And if you're this whole sanctuary city thing where people say, oh, we're not going to do that, we're not going to cooperate. Well, you got to watch out. It's one thing not to cooperate and just don't do anything other than you normally would do. That's one thing. But it's quite another if you take any kind of affirmative step to help hide that person. So this is something that will play out across. It's probably playing out in 100 cases across the country right now, where somebody's got picked up. He's an illegal immigrant. What do we do?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. In Colorado, we're a sanctuary state. Our governor denies it, but it is actually illegal, meaning against the law, meaning you're getting arrested here in Colorado. If you're a sheriff or a police department and you know ICE has a warrant or a detainer on someone, you are not allowed to coordinate an exchange. You're just supposed to let them go out in the wild blue yonder. Do not coordinate anything with them. It's illegal for them to do so. It will be interesting to see if this gives some local jurisdictions that maybe aren't like Denver or Boulder or some real blue county to say, no, we're not going to risk this. There's a detainer. We're going to cooperate with the federal laws. It would be interesting if it gives some shade to some of these jurisdictions that have been told by their liberal lords that they cannot participate in any type of activity with ICE.
That's right. You've got a real conflict there. Now, probably those local laws would be a defense to a sheriff who complied with the local laws in defiance of the feds. And that would be the defense in the criminal case. I lack criminal intent because I just was doing my job locally. But that said, I would be real wary. I think it's one thing not to cooperate, not to call up ICE and say, I've got somebody here. But it's quite another to take any kind of a step that affirmatively keeps ICE from picking up or learning about them. And so forth. So, for example, let's say you go tell someone, I don't want any of you people to tell the feds about this person. I'm ordering you not to do it. You may have just taken an affirmative step to, there's a certain part in which you're not just not doing something, you're doing something by keeping other people from calling. And if that's the case, you may be guilty of obstruction of justice.
Yeah, it's gonna be fascinating to see what happens in this battle and how it proceeds and what the shot across the bow as you talk about it. A couple of other quick topics for you. It seems like this battle. We're waiting for the Supreme Court to make a decision on a couple of items. What do we know? Because these district judges are making injunctions that are affecting the entire nation. I know there's a law moving through Congress that says let's stop this kind of stuff. But has the Supreme Court yet jumped in here about these judges that I believe are activists and kind of making overreaching injunctions against the Trump administration? Where are we at on that?
Well, I'm a little disappointed that they haven't done it yet, but maybe they're just looking for the right test case. Often the Supreme Court does that. They say, okay, we're not going to start making pronouncements until we get the right vehicle to do it. So that it may well be they're just searching for that vehicle right now. But I would hope that the Supreme Court would weigh in. It's certainly within their bailiwick to weigh in and give the lower courts guidance as to when, if any time, they should be issuing nationwide injunctions, what the standard should be. Because otherwise, a local guy the way the system's, a local guy in Rhode Island can dictate policy for the rest of the country. That's not right.
Yeah.
These are district court judges. They're supposed to have limited venue and limited reach. So that's a big deal. And then, of course, the larger question is, to what extent are the judges going to use the tools in their toolbox to prevent Trump from carrying out his immigration arrests and so forth? Just yesterday, and I don't know enough about the case, I know an order came down for Trump to stop some particular initiative he had, of arresting people, detaining people. They've got to lay off to some degree. That they really, you've got an executive that has power. Obama and Biden both did all kinds of things just through their executive power that allowed illegal immigration, that helped illegal immigration, and so forth and so on. Now Trump's trying to use his executive power simply to reverse it. You would think that would be easy, but no. The courts like to say, well, now they relied on what Obama did on deferred action. They relied on what Biden did to give these people parole. Therefore, Trump can't undo it without a due process hearing. So I think they take this due process stuff very much, they apply it very much in a way that is antithetical to executive power.
John O'Connor is my guest again. His podcast is The Mysteries of Watergate, and also he got a great book called Postgate. We'll talk more about that in a second. John, the reason I brought you on here real quick, I don't want to abuse your time here, is that you've written an article recently about how open borders are costing taxpayers, have cost taxpayers billions of dollars, and they brought in a lot of crime to our country. We just found out, right back in October, November, Colorado was on the national radar because of a city called Aurora and the Tren de Aragua gangs that were taking over an apartment complex there. And our governor gaslit the nation and said, there's no Tren de Aragua here. It's not here. And he's a lying sack of Sacagawea, we'll call him. But we had an infestation of Tren de Aragua. They've been deported from Aurora over the weekend. We get the story down in Colorado Springs, Colorado, that there were over 100 immigrants, illegals at a nightclub, an underground nightclubs. There were also members of the U.S. military. Some speculation is that they were hired to be guards or bouncers at this makeshift nightclub. It's crazy. As beautiful as Colorado is, we have been overrun by idiots and a lot of gangbangers roaming the streets. And this is what you write about in your most recent column.
That's right. And I live in California where the same thing happens. Colorado seems to be more attractive now. Probably more wide open spaces and so forth and so on. And it's a beautiful state. And that's a big problem. And a lot of this is caused directly by the Biden administration. I mean, they spent $6 billion, that's with a B, dollars just to NGOs in the last 4 years to have the NGOs help the illegal immigrants get housing and food, and they're really giving them legal advice as to how to game the system. Now that's just that payment, but then there's all kinds of payments for other things. Now they're funding cities who are then housing people in hotels. Sometimes they're luxury hotels. That's out of the taxpayer's wallet. Our prisons are filled with illegal immigrants, and those prisoners cost about $100,000 a year to keep in their hots and cots, I guess. So it's the amount of money in a country that's now facing solvency issues up the line. We can't do it. We can't spend this money, Jimmy, and it's a very, very costly undertaking.
If someone wants to read your latest column, I believe it's probably on your website as well. But AM Greatness, AmericanGreatness.com, I believe, is that the best place to find it?
So in American Greatness, or my website, postgatebook.com. I post all my articles there, postgatebook.com, and talk about how hard it is for the government to get rid of illegal aliens once they're here for 14 days. Once they're here for 14 days, that's a magic number. It takes dynamite to get them out of here.
You know what is amazing to me is just the blatant lie we were told, reflecting on the first 100 days, that Joe Biden says we cannot secure the border. We don't have enough laws. You got to pass a new law. And evidently, that was not truthful, John O'Connor. I know you're shocked because we have laws on the book that allow us to have a closed and safe border. Interesting that we were told that we didn't have enough laws on the book.
Well, that's right. And the law that they wanted to pass would have allowed a certain amount of illegal immigration far above the amounts that Trump's letting in. So that would have been a disastrous bill when you look back on it. Everybody says, oh, there's a fix there. We need a fix. We need a fix. And this is a wonderful bill. Well, guess what? The people who opposed it were right, because it was really a ticket to a certain level of illegal immigration, which should have been unacceptable.
Yeah. John O'Connor, again, your book is available. All of your columns are available, the podcast. To find all things in the greatness world of John O'Connor, where do they go? Give the website.
Postgatebook.com. Postgatebook.com.
John, always a pleasure. I appreciate you hopping on here. Have a great day in California. We'll try to have a great one here in Colorado as well. And John O'Connor, postgatebook.com. Listen, if you're fascinated by history and the Watergate era, John was right in the middle of that. He was actually served as Deep Throat's attorney back in the Watergate era. If you want to know why the media is so partisan, his whole book called Postgate, the whole subtitle is how the Washington Post unleashed the partisan media to the extent of the nuclear propaganda machines that it is. And he talks about it in the book. So if you want to understand where we're at politically today with our justice system, understand where the media came from, you need to go to postgatebook.com. And also there's a great podcast. It's not ongoing. It's already recorded. And it just tells some of the mysteries of Watergate and some of the behind the scenes stuff of what you were told happened at Watergate versus what really did in the Watergate scandal in the Nixon administration. So postgatebook.com. Just look up Postgate Book John O'Connor and you'll find it, and get a book, listen to the podcast, and make sure you enjoy every bit of it. I think you shall if you're a creature of liking history. Another podcast you need to find if you like history is you need to go to the podcast platforms right now and subscribe to the Lakey Unleashed podcast. This show shows up there every day in podcast land on all the big platforms. And also, that's where you can also find long-form interviews that I do, 30, 45 minutes, an hour long interviews on topics, everything from the booger cootie virus, Dr. Fauci. We did a long form with Dennis Neal from formerly with from CNBC about Elon Musk. I played a snippet of the Tannenbaum interview from earlier. Just go subscribe to Lakey Unleashed, the Lakey Unleashed podcast, Jimmy Lakey Unleashed. Search my name, you'll see there. And as soon as I get rid of this voice thing and the sinus thing, we're going to be updating some audio on the Critical Mission podcast. The Lakey Unleashed is politics, and the Critical Mission is about purpose. And there's two different podcasts. But subscribe and like both of them. And there's new content coming to the Critical Mission here real soon. I just got to get over a head cold because that's what I need to do is my voice, and I don't need to sound like I'm don't need to sound like I'm faking I have a cold. All right, glad to have you here. Want to remind you about Sherry Cree. I always talk about the people we bragged about earlier. We're bragging about Corey Clinton, 1hourheatandair.com/Jimmy Lakey. I want to brag about Sherry Cree. She's a realtor here in Colorado that I think you will want to talk to if you're thinking of a real estate transaction. You know, you want to get to know your realtor, right? And Sherry said on the program, I'll have her back on in the next week or so, but she said sometimes she meets with new clients and they have a conversation, and she's like, I don't think we're fit. They're not fits. She's not just wanting to put a sign up. She wants to be a fit for you and your family because she wants to be your realtor for life. She wants to help you create through years of service and years of work, even generational wealth. She knows that can happen. And this is why she's had clients and customers and live in a neighborhood 5, 6, 7, 10 years. And then they say, you know what, we want to move. They call Sherry back. And Sherry's like, it's been a while, but thanks for staying in touch. And they stay in touch. She had one person that disappeared for 2 or 3 years, and she thought they went with another realtor. The person came back to her and said, hi, Sherry, we're ready to sell. Oh, I thought you guys already moved on and maybe we weren't a fit. She goes, no. Well, you gave us such great advice, and we just listened to it and decided to sit here for another couple of years. And that's the kind of person Sherry is. Sherry's going to sit down and give you a conversation if you want the consultation, and she's going to kind of, what are your goals? What are your long-term? What areas are you looking at? And just kind of feel out if you're a fit. She is a ninja salesperson, a ninja realtor. Look up the term ninja sales. And she take all of those connectors into the real estate world. Also, if you're a first responder, a veteran, she will, my friends, take a ding off her commission to give you a better, more money in your pocket. She's always just fantastic looking after those first responders and veterans. And she appreciates appreciate you so much. So have a conversation. If you're moving from Wellington to Windsor to Fort Collins to Fort Lupton, if you're in Aurora or Broomfield or Boulder, you get the idea. Anywhere under the sound of my dulcet tones in Colorado on the I-25 corridor, Sherry can help you. If you're thinking about moving out of the state, she can help you. If you're looking for a contact in the state, you're transferring in. Heck, it's still a beautiful place here, even though Jared Polis has done a lot of damage, but maybe you want a vacation home. Call Sherry. You can come in once a year and enjoy it. Homeswithsherry.com is the website. Homeswithsherry.com. Homeswithsherry.com. All right, my voice has lasted thanks to the creative genius of producer Chad, who pulled an excerpt of an interview that saved my voice for a little bit. But let's do this. It's Meme Roulette. It's by the way, if you'd like to advertise, sponsor, info@jimmylakey.com. We'd love to have you. Round and round the world we go. We steal the memes from where we don't know. We're going to just steal the memes. Here we go. This is again, you're listening on the audio. You're going to miss this, but this is a conversation on meme form that Ford, we were proudly founded by Henry Ford. Toyota says our founder was the visionary Kichora Toyota. And Volkswagen just looks around. They just look around. It's a Nazi reference. For others, you know. Okay. When I had to explain... I got to explain that one to the audio crowd. Volkswagen had no response to that conversation. Round and round the world we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. This is in honor of the 100 days. The baddest mofo on the planet, even his tie gets out of his way. It's a picture of Donald Trump walking with that swagger. His jacket is unbuttoned, but the tie is moving out of the way. It's blown in the wind because the baddest mofo on the planet is walking that way. Happy 100 days. Happy 101 today. Let's do this round around the world we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. When the sign of the museum says do not touch, so there's the guy there with his finger on the museum exhibit. Don't you hate it? It's kind of like you put a sign that says wet paint. Are you tempted that way? So I'm just like, is it still wet? Maybe they have the sign up too long. I'm like a 13-year-old, my friends. I admit it. I struggle with that. Round around the world we go. Let's see how many memes we have to show. Here we go. Here's the redneck edition of a Cybertruck. You put a little... You got to see this one. If you're listening to the podcast only here in the audio version, they basically have put some steel around, some little metal, corrugated steel around a pickup truck and shaped it strangely and called it a Cybertruck, and they misspelled cyber, S-Y-B-O-R, and they got a meme out of it. And if you are listening to the audio version, don't forget, you can go to Rumble, Twitter, Facebook, and you'll scroll down and you'll look up the Lakey Unleashed and you'll see us there. And all the pages, and you can go back and watch the memes at the end of the show if you want, if you're just so curious. Now, I don't know how many memes we have. I'm the outlaw of the streamcast. I'm not the guy that puts the memes together. So here we go. Round around the world we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. There's no picture for me to describe on this one. This makes it easier for audio. Hanging out with your parents as an adult is so interesting because it's like, oh, so that's why I'm like this. Didn't that realization happen? Don't you remember the realization? Yeah, okay, I have become my father. Oh my God, I've become my mother. And usually it's a trait that you don't want to do that one. But sometimes they're good. Sometimes you find the good ones. You're like, that sounds just like, yeah. Yep, it gets very interesting. Round around the world we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. We might have milked the meme machine dry, ladies and gentlemen. It's like milking a bull. You ain't gonna get stuff out of it all the time. I'm not a farmer. I don't know where that reference came from. All right, don't forget, we want to thank all of our sponsors and support them. Hey, this is the great time of year, not just for Sherry Cree, but if you do have air conditioning in your home in Colorado, we're about to enter the month of May, I would highly recommend a service check, a maintenance check. Call them up, 855-1-HOUR, mention Jimmy Lakey, 855-1-HOUR, and have them come out. It's not a lot of money, and it can save you a lot of maintenance or a lot of repairs later on if you do the preventive maintenance. They really come in. It's not just the filters. They really clean. They look deep inside. They put some sensors and testers just to make sure your AC is ready to function fully. And you're not going to get a warning sign usually. It's just going to stop on the worst day of the year for you. So schedule those maintenance checks. I said I was going to schedule mine this week, and I haven't done that. So I need to call them. I'm not telling you to do something I don't do. I believe in the maintenance check so much that I have a membership. And so if I do have a problem, there's a little discount happen. My maintenance checks are already paid for. And I just got to call and schedule. Listen, just call and schedule that maintenance check on your air conditioning. And it's not going to cost you a lot. But if it does break down, it's going to save you a heck of a lot of money having it fixed preventatively before something crashes and burns on that. So, yeah, I do it twice a year, and I recommend for you 855-1-HOUR. All of our sponsors, thank you. If you'd like us to shout out your business, info@jimmylakey.com. Don't forget the casino gala's coming up. The price goes up soon. Go register, riverspromise.org. Come to Colorado. If you're out of state, we'd love to have you. It's at the Omni Hotel, riverspromise.org, riverspromise.org, or riverspromise.com will work. Just go look up Rivers Promise. Would love to have you at the Casino Gala, May the 17th. I hope you will come and join us, okay? I mean that. I hope you will. Please don't disappoint me. Be there, May 17th. I'll talk to you tomorrow morning. Good Lord, when the creeks don't rise. We'll be back here doing the streamcast again. Go subscribe to us on the podcast platforms. There's the button I'm looking for. Whew. I was stalling trying to find the right button. Don't you hate that? Spend all day looking for the right button. Sometimes you don't find the right button. Take that any way you want. I don't know. Ladies and gentlemen, God bless you. May God bless America. I am Jimmy Lakey from the bottom of my heart. I mean this. Peace. I'm out of here.